All right, welcome to That's Enough Out of You podcast. It's Bill and Sean. How you doing, Sean?
Hey, Billy boy, what's up, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain today.
Me too, pal. And listen, the podcast is doing well. We're getting a lot of questions and comments, and going to start the show trying to get to some of those because it's hard to get to all of them, buddy. But we're going to do some of them right now.
All right, sounds good.
So the first one is from Gene Colagirio, a fan of the show. He said, Sean's waiting on that NIL show. So, of course, he's referring to name, image, and likeness, which is, the NCAA rule change that college athletes could make money off of their name, image, and likeness. So, yeah, Gene, the show's coming. We're working on it. I'm trying to line up a guest for it. But it's going to be a good one because it's important, Bill, because just like everything else, the grownups in the room screwed everything up. And NIL should really be the best thing that happened to college sports, especially, college football, which I'm a big fan of. And I know Gene is as well. If they tie it to charities, they do the right thing. It's not supposed to be an enticement for getting high school athletes. It's supposed to be for enrolled students.
Right.
And everybody wins if they do it right. The community, the business. But once again, the presidents of some of these schools are just letting it be the Wild West, and the coaches are out there, and some of the alumni, they're handing out bags and promises, that they're not keeping. And it's the Wild West. And of course, the NCAA is doing what they always do, which is absolutely nothing.
Right. Yep.
And
what they see the money that they can make with it. Sure. They figure out how to circumvent the rules. And then you have what you have today, which is, like you said, Sean, the Wild West.
But the thing that, Bill, you can make a lot of money, and everybody can make a lot of money if you just do it right. It's not supposed to be enticement for high school students. It's supposed to be enrolled students.
Right.
Just follow the rules, and the Massachusetts governor is going to be taking over the NCAA, I think, in March. And he talked a big game, and he said he's going to straighten this out. And he said by 24, so I'll be straightened out, I believe is the date he said. So
good
big
luck.
Words and good luck. And yeah, let's do it. I hope he does it because, me, Bill, I'm a huge college football fan. I mean, and the thing is what NIL is doing to it is it's just absolutely a mess. And again, you can blame the kids, but you know what? Let's blame the grownups in the room that are supposed to be, running these things, and they're the ones messing it up. So yeah, we're working on an episode, Gene. It'll be out shortly.
All right. What else?
Next question is from the Ozman. And he said, Sean, when are you going to be doing an episode on the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa? So, that's ready to go. We just haven't recorded it yet. I've been researching that for a long time, Billy, and I got an opinion on that based on, my research and what I know about the individuals. And it's going to differ from the opinion of the majority, and especially the media, and it's going to be a different, because that's what we do on this show. We give our opinion based on the information that we have and the research we did. And that's going to be a good episode, bud.
And I think wasn't the public opinion that he was buried under the Meadowlands Stadium?
Yeah, they had him in Giant Stadium, and he was everywhere, buddy. There's so many theories on that. But I'm going to go off the one theory that I'm basing on the evidence that I have. And then we'll discuss it, though, buddy. It's going to be a really good episode because, it's going to be in detail. And like I said, I've been really studying that situation for a long time.
All right, good. Looking forward to it.
All right. Our next is a question from Angelo Mariucci. And he said, hey, Bill and Sean, you guys are doing fantastic with the show. I wish you nothing but the best. Are you two going to do an episode on the new documents released about JFK by President Biden? Really looking forward to more on JFK as well as brother Bobby. Yeah, we're working on that. As far as the brother Bobby, I mean, there's an episode up now with Lisa Peace, our second interview with her that we did discussing the RFK assassination. But as far as the documents and going through them now, they take a lot of time. They're not easy to go through. So that episode won't be, in upcoming weeks. That's going to take a while. That'll probably be maybe the summer. when that comes out.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be interesting. I already found some things, Billy, that's pretty interesting.
Uh-huh.
So we'll get to that though. There's a lot to go through.
All right. And thanks, Angelo. Angelo is one of our most loyal
He
listeners.
is.
He's right on top of the shows as soon as they come up. I know he's already listening or watching on YouTube. So
Watch it, and then the phone will be ringing, and he's ready to discuss it.
Keep
him coming, Edge. We like it, buddy.
He's a good listener, that's for sure.
He really is.
Yep.
And then last question is from Joe DePasquale, and he's got a question. He said, Sean, it's actually more of a comment based on the Vietnam episode. He said, Sean, I think it was very important that you mentioned the female general that Carlos Hathcock took out was given the name Apache because of her brutal methods of torture. She hunted Marines, and supposedly she was really pretty and actually hated American soldiers because of the way they treated Vietnamese women. The name Apache gives it a little bit more insight into how brutal she really was. Yeah, Joe, that's a good point. I should have mentioned that, but Billy, sometimes, when you're up here and you just forget some things, that you wanted to mention. And that's a key point to mention how brutal she really was. And when Hathcock took that, really a suicide mission to take her out, I mean, he was really he knew that she was going to be really guarded, and he knew how vicious she was, and that mission was going to be really, it was like Mission Impossible, but he did it. He pulled it off. And the one thing I want to say too, Bill, is, there is some people out there that doubt Carlos Hathcock's story. And there was even a couple books written that kind of try to discredit him. And to me, it's just ridiculous. I mean, how could you discredit this man who, his record speaks for itself,
right?
What the things he did. And, I haven't read the book, but I know one thing in it, they said that, how could Carlos go through all this stuff, but yet, he didn't have any, mental or physical damage to him. And that's not true, because he suffered from depression, he had trouble sleeping. He had all kind of health issues. I mean, he went through hell over in Vietnam, and he went through a lot of stuff. So, you should do your research before you make a comment like that, and, try to discredit a man who really should be a hero.
So when you say discredit, they're
saying
that he's not being truthful about his background.
Yeah, they're saying that he made up the whole thing about the female general Apache. They said that she never existed, and that's just an urban legend, and that's not true. And they said that the missions he went on, and they said that the kills that he said he did, and they weren't as much. But again, I covered that. I remember I said confirmed kills. I think he had 95, which you need the sniper, the spotter, and an independent third witness. Consider it a confirmed kill. But he went on a lot of these missions by himself, Bill, and he didn't have a spotter a lot of times, and he didn't have a third witness, obviously. So, the numbers that I heard on Carlos is like 200-300 kills in Vietnam. And there was a reason the Viet Cong put out a hit on him, a contract on his head.
Right.
So, I mean, they wouldn't do it if he was making this all up and he really wasn't, doing all these things in Vietnam. So, yeah, it's just ridiculous how people just, anything to make a buck, they're going to try to do it,
Yep.
So, yeah, that's it for that, Billy. So I guess keep these questions coming in comments. We love them, and that's a good point, Joe. I should have mentioned that about Apache. And anytime somebody has something like that and we leave something out, because, we're trying to give as much information as we can in a short time. And sometimes you forget stuff, and that's an important thing to understand,
Definitely. Yeah. Great questions, and keep them coming. You can find us if you want to leave comments on our YouTube page. You can do that, or Facebook or Twitter. And then of course the email, we've been getting some more emails lately. It's that's enough out of you show@gmail.com. You can find us there. So plenty of places to get in touch with us. All right,
Billy.
Do we want to hit on this week's topic?
Well, we're gonna talk about the history of Ireland and British occupation, because when we touched on it last time, Billy, we got a little bit more involved with the American side of things and organized crime, and talking about Whitey Bulger, and got a lot of requests from people in Ireland that they want to talk more about the history and tell the history And to do that, we're going to have to go way back, Billy, because the British have been trying to colonize Ireland for 800 years. So let's get into it, buddy. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with the Irish Rebellion of 1641. So you had an uprising by Irish Catholics to end discrimination. Okay, and this led to the Irish Confederate Wars and the Wars of Three Kingdoms. And then let's talk about an English military officer named Oliver Cromwell, who, I like to call Lucifer, because he was the devil, Bill. He led an invasion of Ireland, okay? And there's no way else to say this, but he hated the Irish, and he hated the Catholics. He hated the Catholic Church, and he was a bigot. There's no way to deny that. England could put him on a pedestal. I don't care what they do. He hated the Irish. So in 1649, his troops killed thousands, and they burned towns down. And this includes, Bill, civilians, the elderly, children, and Catholic priests. Catholic priests were targeted. And this is something you're going to see, Bill, that's the whole situation. You always see, despite what the media always says, the British seems to always like to target citizens, where, the Irish are targeting more military targets and stuff.
Right.
And the media always says it the reverse. They always say the reverse. Like the Irish are always the terrorists, and the British are, they're the good guys. And my answer to that is, who invaded who? They're the ones that invaded. So, and just for Cromwell, here's a quote from him, Bill. He said, "I'm persuaded that this is a righteous judgment of God upon these barbarous wretches who have their hands in so much innocent blood." And he's talking about, the Irish Catholics. Mm-hmm. And someone should remind his ass that, they're the ones that invaded Ireland. He's the invader. Right. And, it's just ridiculous. But again, the media spins it, and the Irish are always the bad guys. And you see this, Bill, in movies. I mean, I don't care. It's TV series, The Sons of Anarchy, whatever. They're always the IRAs are always made out to be the bad guys.
Right.
Yep. So then, colonization continued in Ireland. And of course, the Irish Catholic community's fighting against it. And then you had the Battle of the Boyne, which is a battle in 1690 between the forces led by King James, who was a Catholic, against King William, who was a Protestant. And his wife was Queen Mary, who was ceded to the crowns of England and Scotland. Now, the battle took place across the River Boyne, and it resulted in a victory for William. And then James ended up fled to France. Now, Bill, this is something, then I'm sure you've seen this. This is what the Protestant community, the Unionist community in Northern Ireland, the 6 counties in Northern Ireland that want to be, the people that want to still keep it part of the British Empire, mm-hmm. This is what they celebrate. So when you see the marching season, and you see the Unionists, the Orangemen, the Protestants, you see them marching through the neighborhoods. This is what they're celebrating. They're celebrating this victory, and that they still have control of the 6 counties, and they still have all the rights, and the Irish Catholics have no rights. I mean, let me ask you this, Bill. Wouldn't that be the same as if, like, the Ku Klux Klan is marching through Harlem? Mm-hmm. Or Nazis marching through like Jewish neighborhoods. Right. I mean, it's disgraceful. I mean, and they're burning Irish flags. They have all these bonfires. I mean, the hate they're spewing, you hear interviews with them and stuff, and it's just, what are they? They're celebrating bigotry is what they're celebrating. Yeah. Yeah,
it's religious persecution for sure.
Religious and, ethnic, because again, right. Bill, it goes back to, and we're going to discuss this a lot, but as Britain colonized Ireland more, they sent a lot of their own people from England, from Wales, from Scotland. So a lot of those people that, especially like in Northern Ireland, a lot of them felt that they were British. They traced their heritage back to England, Scotland, and Wales. So they don't consider themselves Irish. So that's why you would see them hanging the Union Jack, and burning the Irish flag.
Right. Yeah.
Because they don't consider themselves Irish.
Right.
And they also, it is religion, because the Irish tend to, go towards the Catholic Church, and the British, the English try to go more towards the Protestant and the Church of England. So then, Bill, you had 1798, you had a revolution where you actually have the Orangemen and the Fenians, which is the Protestants and the Catholics. They're fighting together as one, if you could believe this, against the British under the leader Wolfe Tone. And he was a rebel and a founding member of United Irishmen, determined to end British rule, Bill, because it got so bad, Bill, with the British, like their rules and their laws, and they're keeping the people down. And this is what colonization does, and colonialism.
Right.
And he united the Catholics and the Protestants. And he was captured by the British. And then he died before his scheduled execution. He was only 35 years old. Now, most scholars think he died by his own hand. And the idea was he wouldn't give the British the satisfaction of killing him, so he killed himself. And the rebellion, despite assistance from France, was defeated. And this created the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. And you see, the British are always trying to colonize Ireland, and it seems like it keeps failing and it partially succeeding. And, the battles are just going on. And like I said, you trace this for 800 years, and then you get up to the Potato Famine. And I'm sure you're familiar with this, Bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my brother did a lot of work on this, and hopefully we'll have him back, and he could discuss the situation, more recent history, and he could also discuss the Potato Famine, because it was a genocide, Bill, despite what the British government says, and it was from 1845 to 1851, and it devastated Ireland. Its population fell by like 1/3.
Wow.
Yeah, you had 2 million people. Go ahead, Bill.
Imagine that. Just imagine.
Oh,
I mean, it's genocide.
It is genocide. It's absolutely. And 2 million people immigrated from Ireland, mostly to the U.S. And Bill, at one time, if you could believe this, there was more Irish in New York City than there was in Ireland, if you could believe that.
Wow.
And by the end of it, what's that?
That's amazing.
It really is amazing. I mean, and then by the end of the decade, half of all the immigration into the United States was from Ireland, and it was because the potato crops were infected. Now, did the British affect them on purpose? I mean, we're going to, like I said, we'll get my brother on to discuss that more. But the British response to this was an absolute failure. And the Brits created these conditions, Bill, with the harsh laws that they put on Ireland and its dependence on potato crops. So right there, it was a genocide. They caused this.
Sure.
And when it was all said and done, Bill, over 5 million people were killed. Okay. And then when the Brits come in, 67 and 130 regiments of Britain were in Ireland, not on a humanitarian mission, but they were there to remove the remaining food by force. So right there, that tells you what they're trying to do. They're trying to, wipe the Irish out.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was the British fault. And, it didn't succeed, though, because the Irish came back stronger, and they went to America, the ones that survived, and the other ones stayed. And, the fight continued. So the late 1800s, the early 1900s, you really had the rise of Irish nationalism, especially in Catholic communities. And you definitely had it in America, Irish American communities. And, the Brits at this time, this is where they start really importing more of their own people from England, Scotland, and Wales, and they're mostly moving into the north, to the 6 counties up north. And then what happens next is, we get to the Easter Rising of 1916, and this was another, this was an armed rebellion in Ireland that took place the week of Easter, and it was launched by Irish Republicans that were against British rule once again, Bill. And this happened though while the Brits were fighting in World War I. So 16 leaders were executed. You had the IRB, which is the Irish Republican Brotherhood, was a secret oath organization, and its counterpart in America was the Fenian Brotherhood. You had Irish Volunteers, which was a military organization of Irish nationalists led by Patrick Pearse. And then you had the Citizens Army led by James Connolly. And they seized important buildings in Ireland and proclaimed an Irish Republic. So now they're taking back their country. And so what did the Brits do, Bill? They bring in thousands of reinforcements, okay? And that led to intense battles. And the thing is, the Brits still had more soldiers and they had greater weapons, so the Brits stopped this uprising. And then what happened here is this spawned the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, and its political wing, which is Sinn Féin. And Sinn Féin starts to receive overwhelming support in the election in 1918. And they proclaim an Irish Republic, and they set up their own parliament and government. And then now what happens is the Irish Republican Army launches a guerrilla war led by Michael Collins. And the name Michael Collins, Bill, I'm sure you heard of him. There's a movie with Liam Neeson and Julia Roberts. Did you ever see the movie?
I have. I've seen it. Yep.
Excellent movie. Well, Michael Collins is a hero, Bill. And this is why I talked in the Vietnam episode where the Viet Cong actually studied him and, the guerrilla war, because he realized that, hey, they got more weapons, they got more manpower. We have to fight a guerrilla war, kind of like Sam Adams fought the war against the British.
Yep.
So to understand this, Bill, we got to talk right now about two people, including Michael Collins. He was an Irish rebel. He was a hero. He was director of intelligence for the Irish Republican Army. And then later he would become chairman of the provisional government of the Free State. And I'll discuss more of that later. And he was commander in chief of the National Army. And then the other name to point out that you need to understand is Eamon de Valera. And de Valera was a political leader. And the thing is, he was American born. And that's important, Bill, because the British would never kill de Valera for fear of, the fallout from the U.S. And he knew that. He understood that. And that's important to understand that dynamic where, he could get away with a lot of stuff where other people like Collins wouldn't be able to. But the thing is, Bill, Collins was so good. He was such a guerrilla warrior. He was winning this battle against the British. There's no way else to say that, And the IRA would win control of most of the counties. And then the British response, what do you think the British response was? What do they always do when the Irish start beating them? They start attacking civilians.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And their response was at a soccer match at Croke Park. I've been there. Beautiful, beautiful park. And it was a championship for the All-Ireland Gaelic football. And British tanks crashed through the gate onto the field, and they start shooting random people, Bill. They killed 14 civilians, and they wounded 75 or 100, and this happens all the time. They always start attacking civilians. So I asked the question again, Bill, who's the real terrorist? They're the ones invading the country. And then every time the Irish fight back, the British start attacking civilians.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Collins starts continuing the war. And the IRA retaliated by killing 17 British soldiers in County Cork. Another beautiful place. I've been to County Cork. And Collins continues the war. And the British abandoned 500 barracks. And they were burned to the ground by the IRA and by Michael Collins, so they cannot be used again. And what happens, Bill, is the British start withdrawing their soldiers in the South, the 26 counties, okay? And they're leaving it to the IRA. They're winning this war, And the Brits, once again, they start attacking civilians, and they start burning down businesses. They start burning down towns. And they send in a group called the Black and Tans. Now, there's no other way to say this, Bill. The Black and Tans were not a paramilitary organization. They were a bunch of criminals. The British basically opened up the prisons and put together this ragtag army of criminals and sent them into Ireland to do damage, to do what criminals do. So how does Collins respond to that? Well, he executed 14 British intelligence officers, Bill. Okay. And this is what really made the Brits scared, because, Bill, these guys were supposed to be deep cover. Okay. These guys were and you got to give the British credit. The British, Israel, and of course, America, they always have powerful intelligence communities. but these people weren't even supposed to, nobody was even supposed to know they existed. And here Collins executed, and it was all like perfectly done, Bill.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the British are like, oh man, we're in trouble. Like, we're losing all these counties in the South. And here, people that we have deep cover, they end up dead. Like, they realize now that they can't really win, so they realize there has to be some type of concession here. So what Collins is sending a message to the British. He's like saying, like, hey, look what I could do, but he was also, and a lot of people didn't realize this, and the British didn't realize this at the time, is Collins and the IRA were running out of weapons. They're running low on weapons. They're running low on manpower. And this was like kind of this last thing that he wanted to really show the British, hey, we got you. But he was really, they were running low. There's no doubt about that. And you see that in the movie. They showed that in the movie with Liam Neeson,
That's right. Yeah.
So then you have the 1921, the partition and the War of Independence truce. And this is what happens here now, Bill. So Michael Collins is sent to England as a political representative of the Irish people. And De Valera sent him knowing that Collins was going to come home with only the 26 counties and leaving the 6 behind. And there's no doubt about this. There's no doubt about this because, like I said before, the population in the North now, the Protestants would outnumber the Catholics at that time because England was putting in a lot of their own people into the North. So and De Valera, since he was American, he knew he wouldn't be targeted by the British, and he had access. He was talking to different people back channeling in Britain, and they basically told him, look, we'll give the 26 counties, we'll give that freedom to 26, but we're keeping the 6. So De Valera basically set Collins up. There's no other way to describe that. He's setting him up as a patsy. Yeah. Basically, you go bring the bad news home, and De Valera looked like a hero, and Collins looks like a traitor, especially those people in the North,
Right. Yeah.
And like I said, De Valera knew this all along. And the fact is, Collins brought England to its knees, Bill. There's no denying that. Like, I don't know how anybody could say anything different. Like, here's one thing. When he goes to set this treaty with the British didn't even know what he looked like, Bill, until he got out of the car.
Wow.
They did not, and they believe me, Bill, they were all over Ireland trying to find him. Yeah. And his name, he was on a hit list everywhere, and they didn't even know what he looked like.
Wow.
That's how good he was at what he did, and so then they signed the Anglo-Irish Treaty, and this gave the 26 counties independence, but it kept the 6 counties in Northern Ireland under British rule. So you have the Republic of Ireland, the 26 counties that are free, and then you have the 6 counties that are still part of the British Empire. And what happened here is this led to an Irish Civil War. And you had the Free Staters supported the treaty, and then you had the anti-treaty opposition saw it as a betrayal against the Republic, because you still have those 6 counties there that are not free.
Right.
And you had IRA members on both sides fighting the Civil War. And again, Civil War caused by the British. And the Free Staters end up winning because they had weapons that were provided by the British government. And Collins ends up being ambushed and killed. And, most people believe it was a conspiracy by the British. They believe that sniper Sonny O'Neill, who was a former sniper in the British Army, and he joined the IRA, but he has British intelligence ties. And he most likely was the one who killed Collins. And, Collins to me died a hero. He's the hero of the story. De Valera set him up as the patsy, and what you have is the 26 counties that are free, and then you have the 6 that are still under colonialism, and I think, Bill, we'll stop it here because, as we get more into what's the situation is there today, I'd like to bring on a guest, and talk more about it, and we'll get into like Bloody Sunday and everything that's happened. But you can see from the history, Bill, that it all starts with British colonialism,
right?
And the thing is, it seems to me like even today, like who's fighting for those Irish Catholic community in Northern Ireland? And I think if you did a poll of real legitimate vote, that today the Irish Catholics would outpopulate the Protestants in Northern Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have the majority today. And I know President Biden sent up, he made young Joe Kennedy as his envoy, his main go-to guy for Northern Ireland. So hopefully he could get something done. But to me, Bill, who's worrying about the people in Northern Ireland? Because the 26 counties of Ireland have their freedom. That government has never helped the fight since the partition.
Yeah.
They've always stayed out of it and kind of sided with the British. They've never tried to intervene in what's going on over there. And we'll talk more about the more atrocities that were committed, because as the story gets on and you get into the 70s and you see what happened in Bloody Sunday, you see the British always start attacking civilians. That's their MO. And to me is, who's looking out for those people that are still unfree in the North? Because you still have the rules, like the police department is always like 90% Protestant. Most of the rights, most of the good jobs are going to the Protestant community.
Yeah.
And now they don't even have the majority.
Yeah.
And the thing is, even America, like, there is people in America that are upset and trying to do something, but for the most part, everybody kind of forgets about those people in the North, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got any thought on that, Billy.
No, I think you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, there's so many, with all the things going on in the world today, Ukraine and North Korea, it's definitely not on the priority list, at least not here in this country.
Well, it's not right. It's not. But even when it was, though, Billy, see, and this is what, like, even when it was, like, in the 70s, when all this stuff was happening, like Bloody Sunday, and then in the 80s with the hunger strikers, and we talked about that on the last episode, and what did the American government really did nothing. Reagan looked the other way.
Right.
He was buddy with that, to me, that terrorist Margaret Thatcher. And he sided, with them. So, I mean, it's like, I don't know. And like I said, in the media, it's always the spin that the Irish are the bad guys and the British are the good guys. And you see that in all the TV shows. Like, you have all these Protestant paramilitary groups and all this, the UVF. And how come they're never in film, Bill? How come they never make them the bad guys? You always see the IRA as bad guys. You always, that's how they make it. And that's the spin that's put on it. But again, who invaded who? And how come every time the Irish fight back, the British start targeting civilians? And that's the thing, that attack on just at the soccer match and burning down towns and targeting Catholic priests. And it's just, it's to me, who is the terrorist?
Yeah.
Invaders. And it comes down to colonialism, Bill. And this is something that we talk a lot about on the show. And this is what JFK understood. And I really believe if JFK wasn't killed, another situation that he was heavily interested in was obviously because, his grandparents came from Ireland. He was interested in what was going on over there. And I think he would have really made it a priority, if in his second term, maybe to try to do something over there.
Yeah.
And, I remember when, it was the president of India said to him, talking to him about British colonialism. And Kennedy said, let me stop you right there. You don't have to tell me nothing about colonialism, because he said, my people have been, down for hundreds of years by the British. And I understand colonialism fully well. And I think he really, this is why I think, because he was Irish, I think that's why JFK was so anti-colonialism, so anti-imperialism.
Right.
Because you see what it does, Bill. It destroys communities.
Yeah.
It splits communities. And when you have two sides of a community and you have one side getting all the jobs, all the rights, police department that's all one side, I mean, who are you servicing, Bill? I mean, what are you doing? It's just an absolute disgrace. So I think we'll stop it there, Billy. We'll cut this short, and we'll get into more of the recent situation. We'll pick up the next one. We'll get up to Bloody Sunday. We'll talk about Bloody Sunday, and then we'll get into the situation, the peace treaty, and how the situation is there today in Northern Ireland, and we'll talk about that. But who's speaking for the Irish Catholic community in Northern Ireland? Because I don't think it's the Republic of Ireland, and I don't think it's America.
Right.
I mean, everybody forgot about those people over there, and they're still fighting for their freedom.
Yeah. Amazing. All right, Sean. Well, that was good. A lot of good information there. Hey, I want to talk about something real quick before we wrap up today, and that is just kind of getting back to our Watergate episodes that we did. We talked about the White House plumbers, and that Nixon created to, like, as you said, Sean, to plug the leaks.
Right.
There's going to be a 5-part miniseries coming up on HBO called White House Plumbers, and what I think we're going to do is we are going to do after shows for those 5 episodes. So if I believe if they do air them on Sunday night, which I believe they might, we'll try to record an episode either that night or the next day, and release that as soon as possible, just to kind of review the show and give you guys some of our thoughts. But it looks like it's going to be a really good show. Woody Harrelson is in it.
A lot of good actors.
A lot of good actors. Lena Headey from Game of Thrones looks like she's going to be in that one. So just really looking forward to that, and hopefully, like I said, we can do our little after show and get that out to you guys. So I think that'll be exciting.
We got a lot of good shows coming up, Billy. It's going to be a fun time, and keep those requests coming in. And anything anybody wants to talk about, if we know about the situation, we'll do a show on it. If not, we'll do some research on it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, sounds good. All right, Sean.
All right, buddy.
Good episode.
I guess I'm not going to be getting any greeting cards from the British, huh?
Probably not anytime soon, no.
But oh well.
All right, Sean. Good job.
All right, buddy.
That's enough out of you.
That's enough out of you.
All right.
All right. Good night, everybody.